Hello, welcome to the Vibrance series on mental health awareness. My name is Richa Kumari, and I'd like to take a few seconds to introduce our next speaker, Tracey DuEst. Tracey is the Associate Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Xavier University, and I met Tracey about 15 years ago when she and I used to be diversity training together and doing consulting work in diversity. And I used to be amazed at her ability to be able to navigate extremely difficult conversations and gain people's trust. And I always wondered, what is it that really makes her so good at this? And can I copy it? And over time, I realized that what really made her so good was the fact that she had really down in the bottom of her heart a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding for the human condition, a lot of grace, and a lot of strength. And that's what makes her a great mother, a great leader, a great trainer, and a great teacher. And while I can't copy that, I'm always happy to hear that and get a little glimpse up into her mind. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tracey DuEst.
Thanks, Richa. I really appreciate those kind words and think very highly of you and have learned a ton from you as well. But I was really touched by what you said. So thank you very much. Hi, I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about my mental health story as part of Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm really humbled to have this opportunity, and I think this is going to feel like a coming out of sorts, at least as far as the mental health piece. Most of my life, people have really only seen one side of me, the side of me that by societal standards says that I'm very successful, that I have it together, successful in sports, successful in work, and have a pretty good ability to connect with other people. And those are all true. But what a lot of people don't know about me is that throughout my life, I have both witnessed and suffered from anxiety and depression. And I want to share a little bit about that story today. So as I was growing up, as I said, I was a witness first. I had my mom, who has had at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 different bouts of depression, some to the point where she was hospitalized. And she did give me permission to share her story because she, like me, believes that the more we talk about our own suffering, it helps other people see their own humanity. And so at first I was just a witness to it and saw my mom suffering, saw how when she was depressed, how disconnected she was from me and really the rest of the world. And that there really wasn't anything that I felt like I could do to make that better. What I didn't really know was going on is that I was really good at staying busy. So again, I was in sports, I was class president, just always doing things. But I also was acutely aware that many times, even when I was up in front of people, that I had this sort of internal anxiety going on, or this internal thing that said, are you good enough? What's going on? What if they really knew? So I had a lot of chatter. There were times, and I think I had sort of my first official bout of depression sometime in college when I was figuring out who I was and kind of wrestling with my own identities. So needless to say, I never knew what to call it, but I would say that throughout my life, I've definitely been very familiar with anxiety, familiar with being up in front of people and having this sort of feeling going through my body, but not knowing what to name it. And then also, no one ever told me, like my shirt says, it's okay not to be okay. Not that my parents told me otherwise, but I think society in general doesn't talk about difficult topics like when you are having depression, anxiety, you're just not feeling the way that you think everybody else thinks you should be. So I wish that somebody told me this a long time ago, that the most important thing is to love yourself and really figure out what's going on with you. So when Richa mentioned that she noticed that I was able to be highly empathetic with people and that was one of my gifts, I do really think it's because I've witnessed suffering in my own life. I've witnessed suffering within my mom, and I've witnessed suffering in a lot of other people. And I also think that people can sense that when they come to see me. But what I want to talk about is the ability to be okay with telling someone that you need help. I think that's really critically important. So as I said, telling somebody that you need help and asking for someone's help when you are in a place where it's hard to get out of bed, you don't know anything but to put one foot in front of the other. Those are all things that I've experienced. And I'm going to read you a quote that a few years ago when I was in a pretty big depression, it lasted a little over a year. I read this and it brought me to my knees. And I hope this is helpful to you. It's a quote by Jim Carrey. And it says, "Depression is your body saying, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar you've created in the world. It's too much for me." You should think of the word depressed as deep rest. Your body needs to be depressed. It needs deep rest from the character that you've been trying to play. And when I saw that, every muscle in my body just relaxed, because it really was the epitome of what I was feeling, but I didn't have words for. In other words, I wanted people to know that I was suffering, but I didn't know that it was okay to let them know I was suffering. So as you heard, there are a lot of things that people didn't know about me. I'm hoping that me even doing this video and talking about my mom's experience and my experience will really be helpful to people to know that people can appear to be okay and you have no idea what they're going through. And so the last part of my story that I wanted to share, and I made a promise to myself after this happened last year that I would, is that on May 7th of 2019, Jody Maxey, she was my former partner and the co-parent of my kids, took her own life. She died by suicide. And I found her. And so through the experience of sort of leading up to that incident, witnessing all the suffering that she had, and then finding her, that really has catapulted me into another place of really wanting to be open about my own experiences, talking about the things I witnessed through her, talking about the things that I learned from watching my mom go through what she went through, and really be vocal about it. It's something that I intentionally talk about in the spaces that I facilitate, so that people know that if they happen to be experiencing that and feel like I felt several years ago, that I'm a person that they can talk to. So I want to make sure that people really understand that, I guess what my shirt says, it's okay not to be okay. And that I think through my own striving and perfection that I never really got that message. And it really wasn't until I read the Jim Carrey quote that I realized what I was carrying around, what the expectations I had from myself, not really anybody else. My parents never gave me high expectations. In fact, they usually were the ones that were reminding me not to be so hard on myself. So I'm going to close this part and then move to giving you some information about resources. So as far as specific resources, there's a ton of national organizations. So I would mention Mental Health America, the National Alliance on Mental Health, the National Suicide Prevention Network. But I think most importantly, I want to remind people that you yourself are your most precious resource. Now, I don't want to say that you should be able to figure out everything on your own. That's in fact the opposite of what I want to say. What I mean by that is that the most important thing that you can do for yourself is unconditionally love yourself. Love all parts of you. I did not learn that. I didn't know what that meant. I thought that I just needed to keep striving to be somewhere instead of just embracing who I am and loving those parts of me that were anxious, that were depressed. And that's actually really what has gotten me where I am today. So some self-care things that I do that I think would be helpful are meditation, yoga, walking, breathing exercises, and all of those sorts of things. And you have to kind of find what really gets you going. So things that are specific to you that, make you happy, that will get you out of bed. Perhaps also walking with friends, which is something I do a lot. And some of the groups that I'm in community around meditation are really helpful. I do meditate on my own, but I also meditate through my Buddhist Sangha. And having that community to both meditate and then process through what's going on in life is incredibly helpful for my well-being. I think I also want to say that I don't have a particular opinion about whether to use medicine or not. I have been on both antidepressant and anti-anxiety drugs before. There are times in my life that those were really helpful and they seem to work. And right now I am not using them. I'm using a lot of very conscious breathing techniques that are building circuits in my body through some energy work that are really helping me be more clear, be more healthy, feel very strong and grounded within myself. But I think that you have to do what is best for you. And I know that Sometimes people do a combination of both, if you will, Western and Eastern medicine. So they might be taking some traditional drugs along with doing some of the self-care things I mentioned. I think figuring out what is best for you is one of the most important messages I can give you. And to know, again, it's okay not to be okay. Again, if I could have gotten that message a long time ago, and that people could have been more open throughout my life, and I'm thinking just like in schools and in places where people have the most influence, coaches, I would have probably known and been able to talk about the internal suffering I was having a lot sooner. So I'm telling you, it is okay not to be okay. And the most important thing that you can do for yourself and anybody else is just to literally love all of who you are, because the best gift you can give yourself and anybody else on this entire planet is to love yourself so that you can unconditionally love other people. Thank you.